From an undisclosed location in the upper Michigan Peninsula, it's Beyond the Near Horizon, featuring Colonel Stephen Prather. Now here's your host, Colonel Stephen Prather.
Thank you, Stephanie. And to all those across the North American continent, expanses oceanic, intergalactic, and the cyberspace vortex. We do appreciate you all materializing here for the next little while as we journey together into the darkness beyond the crest of the vanishing point and infinitely onward. It is Friday, August 21st, and I want to say, right off the top, I had a spinal injection yesterday, and I feel like frickin' Superman. I would like to do an exhibition fight right now. If you listen to this show, you know I'm no man of violence, but Lord, do I want to wrestle something. Speaking of wrestling, as it happens on the show tonight, we welcome Pastor Thomas Paul Knackery from the Church of the Ascending Tension down in Libertyville, Kansas. He's got an update on his excavation that started in the basement of the Divine Detention Tabernacle there, revealing a fascinating labyrinth of sewage tunnels dating back to the city's founding. Boy, let me tell you, once he got past 20 feet or so, he really started running into some interesting stuff. You gotta ask how desperate someone has to be to put a box of Carly Simon albums in a cylindrical pit and seal it off. More importantly, what are they up to? So, strange motives afoot on the Kansan Plains. Before we get to that, we also have a new field report from independent scholar and journalist Jenny Calista Yasmine, who understands she's somewhere south of Tuscaloosa. So we'll check in with her momentarily on one of the half dozen or so investigations she has in progress. Very quickly, you should know that we have the results of our big giveaway for a brand new Paulson Ravenous Panther 3 56K modem. As they say in the commercial, don't just connect, ride that Ravenous Panther. And we're talking about blazing fast here, folks. We've hooked up our own here at the studio, and I've got to say it flies like a stepped-on golf ball. Just one example, the Portuguese monkey attack video, which we've been chatting about the last 2 weeks. This video is 48 seconds long, so not a short video by any means. And we were able to download a copy of that off of cheapandfree.com in 2.5 hours. So you do the math. But on to the important part. Mr. Buck Prawn of Atlanta, Georgia, is our lucky winner. He correctly named all 6 of Marisol's criminal convictions. You'll be receiving the Ravenous Panther 3, along with premium membership on the name of the show is Beyond the Near Horizon with ColonelStephenPrather.com, and an Astral Beginnings lotion set, which comes with a free wicker cup and Astral Beginnings lotion t-shirt. There was a small mix-up there with the shirts, and they're all toddler-sized, so you'll probably keep that sucker in the wrapper and wait for a friend or neighbor to pop one out. Got to look super prepared, I think. We have to address also the website. A couple of things. We don't know where the now notorious rainbow piano keys background image came from, and as for the suggestive poses, we looked at all the models in that picture, and outside of Sam Harbine, we don't recognize any of the rest of them. And Ian, who stepped up following Bjorn's untimely departure, has since updated it back to the Starfield. And he's sleeping in front of the monitor each night, so if that changes, he'll start his investigation then and there. All around mysterious affair. That said, I looked at my counter on the PC today, and I have 656,000 emails in my inbox. Last Tuesday, I had 35. So I don't know what I've been signed up for. And I have been able to sift through some of that by filtering out the word enhancement. Got a dozen or so real notes about the website name, and I hear your feedback clear as a wounded seagull. The deal is we first take it to the shorts and pay $100 to register the the domain name. All right. But the form for that thing was confusing as a headless hamster. And I recognize the name of the site is a long one. And our first instinct was just to shorten what we already had. But one of our more enterprising fans has purchased the rights to at least 400 of the variations we tried. On that note, Sanji, we're sure you're listening, and we've received your ransom letter of sorts, but we would love to purchase one of the names you're sitting on. We're on a very tight budget, not to mention that I don't think we can get our hands on that much shaving cream, at least not all at once. So for others listening, with that whole mess in mind, my feeling is that many of you out there are much more savvy with this internet stuff. We've obviously got Sanjeev on one end, and I hope he finds a friend, but I think of Simona Saatchi from Drifting Gardens, New Jersey, who many of you know claims to be the first person born in cyberspace. You're not going to find better experts than our listeners, so we're going to draw the water of wisdom from the collective mind hive that all of you are a part of. As I said, we're a little backed up on email, so if you have a shorter, catchier website name for the show, we'd like you to call into the Higher Plane hotline, 1-800-438-4444, or 1-800-GET-HIGHER, spelled HIRR. You can also send a telegram via our sponsor, Western Wayfarers. Western Wayfarers reminds you that for birthdays, holidays, or just saying hello, give the gift that truly no one will expect, the gift of a real telegram. Well, either way, we'll read those on the air, and I have a feeling that we're going to end up with something really special. Lastly, on this topic, a reminder that we do still have the name of the show is Beyond the Near Horizon with ColonelStephenPrather.com website guides for sale. You get a ton for your money. There are 75 pages, bound in a hardcover with the show logo. Really thorough guide to the website. Now, surgeons don't open you up without doing a little reading, and you don't want to crack the chest of our website open without this little number. On top of that, it's fun to read. Obviously, if we change the name of the website, you can scratch out the old references and write the new one in the margins. Now, we're still in the middle of a beef with our credit card clearinghouse, but you can send a check or money order for $59.95 to Beyond the Near Horizon website guide, care of the Organism Consortium, P.O. Box 45000, 45,000, South Memphis, Tennessee 38106. Yuri just handed me a note. This is from Edger47. I guess that's a handle. Edger47 writes, "Hey geniuses, I just submitted this comment on the feedback form for your hopeless website. Did you even think that might be what it is for? Your show is the hole they pour stupid in. Love, Edge." You know, I'm not going to wave a good idea off when it comes along. I have to admit, I had completely forgotten that forum thing was in there. So if you're listening and you want to put your suggestion in that way, pop that wiener on the grill. The name of the show is Beyond the Near Horizon with ColonelStephenPrather.com. One interesting thing I think we'll have to have Hendrix Tristan back on for certain. The last time he was on was just a few weeks ago in July, and we were chatting about the 10th anniversary re-release of his book, The Coincidence Manifesto. And we normally spend most of our time talking about that string of murders in Finland, believed to have been committed by a woman with the exact first, last, and middle name as Marisol. But I was showing him the website during the break, and you want to talk impressive. He made a quick call on his cellular phone on a hunch. And it turns out that all 27 people that had submitted comments with the form on our website had been the victim of a serious property crime. Now, I'm not sure what the number is up to now, but I would say to Edger47, be on the lookout for that. And if something goes down, do give us a call and let us know what they took or damaged. All right. You could use the website form, I guess, to get that back to us. All right. So, Yuri, I think we have Jenny ready for us on the hotline. And folks, you will know her name if you listen regularly She's contributed to this program since 1985, independent scholar, journalist, specializing in the occult. A graduate of the Lake Huron Academy of Paranormal Sciences, obtaining a degree in parapsychology with specialization in lunar forestry. She has authored several books on various hauntings and oddities in the U.S. and the world over, and earned this year the Amityville Award for Best DIY Manual, that for case studies in disembodied cutlery. Super useful book, by the way. That and many other achievements follow the name Jenny Calista Yasmine. Jenny, can you hear me?
Yes, Stephen, I can hear you. Thank you for that very kind introduction. Am I coming through okay?
A little staticky, but not too bad. How's the weather in Tuscaloosa?
I'm speaking to you from Durrës, Albania this week, Stephen, where we've been continuing our investigation into the whereabouts of the Woolen Boy.
Oh, all right. Tough break. Kid looks like a strawberry oven mitt.
I have a trove of findings to share with you on that front. But I wanted to make sure you got the voicemails I left you earlier this week while I was in transit.
I'm pretty sure. I do have to say that I don't know much about calving, to be honest. As a layperson, I think you should take your uncle to the ER. To my knowledge, it's not normal for anyone to leak from that end.
Thank you, Stephen. My messages were actually remarking on the very busy celestial calendar these past 2 weeks. 5 different solar and planetary conjunctions alone. Of course, the Perseid and Cygid meteor showers.
Saturn retroactive last weekend?
Well, Saturn entered its retrograde motion.
Well, I haven't been approached, but I don't make a habit of ranking the planets, to be honest.
Add to all of this the Venus and Mercury conjunction next week, and any versed observer could only view this as auspicious, and we funneled that energy effectively into the Woolen Boy project. Now, as you know, we only have 2 photographs of the Woolen Boy that have been circulating online. One of those is aerial and very difficult to interpret.
Right.
The other one, of course, is the famous shot of him catching a fly ball in the stands of a San Diego Padres game next to an elderly vendor with a facial deformity that caused him to resemble a sort of stretched out version of the late actor Chuck Connors.
Ah, yes, the horned man. Well, neither of those pictures are the best resolution, but we do have them up on the website, folks. You can just mouse click on the Children with Problems menu to get in there and have a look. Jenny, I'm a little surprised not to find you in San Diego then, for that matter.
Well, for one, the horned man has proven impossible to find, and there is some suggestion, based on the reflection carrying over the face and the small Hardy sign attached to his shoulder in the photograph, that he may have been photoshopped.
I'd like to go 1 year without being targeted by another Photoshop scam. Now, the one from March still stings like a broke rubber band. You know, you see Mary Conchito Alonso on the surface of Mars, you get your hopes up. It takes a sadistic mind to do that, if you ask me.
Right, and this was a real eye-opener, Stephen. In the wake of the cease and desist order taken out by the Padres organization, on a whim, we did some additional research, and there are apparently 5,611 cities or townships named San Diego worldwide.
Dolph Lundgren, that's a lot.
Not to mention 1,243 of those field some version of the San Diego Padres.
Little League, then, we're talking.
No, if we include Little League, that number shoots up to 2,808.
Wow.
However, examination of the catch photo clearly shows adult males in baseball uniforms in the background, so we can rule out the younger lot.
Okay.
Our team linguist, Lindretta, pointed out that there was a sponsorship patch for Spend-A-Pound on one of the players' uniforms. This turns out to be a chain store in the United Kingdom specializing in travel toiletry resale.
You know, they need to get a shop like that over here in the States pronto. I can't imagine how much I'd blow in a place like that. Not to mention, smaller packages have to be better for the environment.
Interesting. As you know, we lost my assistant Jocelyn on the squirrel monkey drop at Asphalt World last December while we were investigating occultism at Tempe Rent-A-Car.
Oh, sad stuff. You know, I'm not big on regulation, and it's one thing to feature squirrel monkeys, but the biscuit has rolled under the table if you got them operating the ride.
She will be missed. We sold the remainder of Jocelyn's prosthetics collection at an impromptu estate sale in Encino to book passage to England. Unfortunately, after a week spent searching in the UK, it turns out there were no cities or villages there bearing the name San Diego.
Well, not to be critical, but I know they have atlases and maps at the library. Did you consider giving those a go before you dove into that?
That was absolutely top of mind, Stephen, but we were in the Encino area at that point, and you may recall that we are on year 2 of our 10-year ban to entry to the California State Library System, this stemming from our 1996 toilet paper flammability study. Now, as you know, I am recovering from an addiction to bovine tranquilizers.
Well, those things get a bad rap in general. I think folks should ride the mule before they complain about the pasta.
Well, connected to that, and at the end of that week in the UK, as I was making calls trying to arrange for a 4-gallon combination bucket of these to be delivered to the Bertrand Russell Day Spa in Sussex, where we were staying at the time, the black marketer, whom we'll call Kenny Wayne Shepherd for the purposes of this discussion, kept confirming an address in Albania. It turns out he had sent a load of eclair-shaped methadone loaves along with some urine-stained San Diego Padre uniforms sold at half price to an Albanian address for a woman who identified herself as Margaret Cho.
Wow.
This is where we heard the name Woodswain for the first time.
Well, why in Hades is Margaret Cho ordering baseball uniforms for a Celtic tribute band?
Stephen, Woodswain is actually a replica English village on the Albanian coast south of Durrës. This is my primary reason for being here with the unit.
I see.
Interesting backstory. For years, there's been a movement and political party that started in the capital, Tirana, named Seone Britanni, which translates to Why Not Us Britain in Albanian. The idea was to encourage a sort of soft invasion by the British through dotting the coast with cozy villages to lure them in.
These folks should be a little careful about what they ask for, I think. And then again, I don't think Albania has ever been invaded, am I right?
Well, aside from the Romans, Visigoths, Huns, Bulgars, Slavs, Ottomans, Italians, Germans, and Communists, it's been mostly quiet recently. So far, there are only 2 of these villages that have been funded and built by Seone Britanni. The sister village down the coast in Vlora, Albania, was purchased by a private equity firm and converted into a Der Wienerschnitzel family park, featuring a flaming schnauzer attraction. So, Woodswain stands on its own for now. We were prevented from openly entering Woodswain during daylight hours due to an NHO issued at the request of the local.
I'm sorry, Jenny. A Neptune Hemorrhoid Oracle NHO?
Yes, that's a non-harassment order. It's the equivalent of our restraining order back in the States. The NHO was sworn out at the insistence of the local Unitary Council.
Oh, I've never had too much trouble from the Unitarians. I assume they must be a little more aggressive over there. I tried the diet once. If you could shape tofu at all, I think I really would have stuck with it.
Well, Stephen, I think this situation might refer to something different. This is a sort of local village council, I guess you could say.
It baffles me why the Brits haven't tried to clean up some of these terms. I mean, let's all try to get along here.
True enough, but we have to remember that these are Spaniards pretending to be Brits. They just happen to be very well researched.
I thought this was in Albania.
It is more or less. Seone Britanni actually has behind it a long-standing Spanish expat community based out of Tirana.
Didn't we run a story on the website last year about Canadians pretending to be Spaniards living in Turkey?
Yes, your memory is spot on. It's entirely possible these are Canadians pretending to be Spaniards living in imitation English villages in Albania, given the proximity to Turkey. That aside, it seems like there's a really focused hatred over here for your program, and as soon as they recognized that we were affiliated with the show, things really got nasty quickly.
Is this the dust up over the Anton LaVey nesting doll again? I don't know why folks hold on to this stuff. We have these things made overseas, but I thought they were pretty darn good quality. I mean, who looks at the packaging for things in a reflection, even if it does spell Die England Die in the hall mirror? I mean, that's nobody's fault.
Well, it actually doesn't involve the Matryoshka dolls. Their main complaint is the treatment of the Barbary sisters, the twins from Liverpool.
Not ringing a bell.
They seem to object to your repeated suggestions that you have found genealogical links between Jonna and Gabby Barbary and the Portland, Oregon Chimera Beast.
All right, hold the rooster. I know what this is. Jenny, and naturally, no offense to you, but Boy, am I sorry we ever had Baldwin Reed guest host. And I expected better ethics from a lacrosse champion, to be honest, even if it was amateur.
I don't remember a Baldwin Reed guest hosting.
Well, that's the confusing part. He referred to himself as Colonel Stephen Prather throughout the show and every day afterwards. I mean, the whole thing has been nothing but a pair of loaded Pampers. I still get credit card bills to this day, and let me tell you, I've never known anyone so obsessed with signed Monty Hall glossies.
I didn't realize that, Stephen. Well, I did manage a brief phone interview with Alicia Garnett, whom I'm excited to say I have confirmed as the mother of the Woolen Boy. I'll play that for you now.
Fantastic. Let's hear it.
She may sound a little sleepy. I wound up having to call her a lot later than I wanted.
Well, those come off a little slushy.
She really opened up to me. I was very surprised. She seemed to be very attracted to our staffer, Zed.
Yeah, that really comes across. You can hear it.
That joke is a little racy, but I didn't have a way to remove it from the recording.
Oh, that's fine. Is that a rock polisher?
It's actually one of the neighbor boys singing outside the window. This part is very touching, I think.
Did she say she bit down into rubber?
No, there she was talking about Tony Blair. She gets really political from here. I stopped the tape. Now, unfortunately, I did not speak with Mitchie directly, but we did get to watch him out the window overlooking the back patio. Suffice to say, the women in the household, and her and her mother, are very protective of him.
Who's Mitchie?
The Woolen Boy. She mentions him several times in the recording.
Well, that's amazing, Jenny. This one I've got a load of questions on. Right off the top, we can put an end to our office pool after a grueling 3 months. Is the Woolen Boy cannibalistic?
I'm afraid he is not cannibalistic. He subsists almost entirely on a diet of canned cream corn.
Daggone it. Second time that's happened with cream corn. All right, next question. Does the Woolen Boy fly?
This one is a little murky. Zed, Troy, and I split on this. I'll give you my take first. I think he flies, but he moves really fast in a single direction and doesn't have much control. Zed and Troy claimed he is just jumping off the roof. Reasonable people can disagree, obviously.
I'd say that's a yes on the power of unassisted flight. Not to be too biased, but I think Zed and Troy are just afraid of the unknown. I mean, neither of them tried the fruit jello at Yuri's belated christening party, and I haven't seen either of them wear the Beyond the Near Horizon cross-training shorts we passed out on Bastille Day, so some lessons in courage right there.
Insightful as always. Stephen, we're shopping this recording with every major network now. You can expect to see this story everywhere in a matter of days.
Well, with a recording of that quality, no surprise. Jenny, thanks very much, and safe passage back to the States.
We're actually headed east, Stephen. I don't have to remind you of Bjorn Raptor's recent untimely death.
We were just talking about that. All-around awful story. I mean, one heck of an athlete and quite the engineer. I just have to say, as tempting as it is to cook with transmission lines, and they give the wild game in particular a unique flavor, it's just bad news to mix that with tailgating, collegiate or pro.
Well, as it happens, he also left the show a collection of prosthetics. We'll be liquidating those to fund our travel to Myanmar. If you consult your Burmese mythology, you'll readily recognize the Baloo.
A man-eating shapeshifter.
The same. There have been dozens of accounts recently that Singh Pranab, proprietor of the Uncle Singh's Curry and Fritters restaurant chain in Myanmar, has been knowingly employing Baloo to work his kitchens, as they don't appear to have an aversion to extreme heat, and they operate at reduced labor costs. We're looking to time our arrival there around an Osmond family reunion special being filmed in Mandalay. I expect to call in with that report in the next week and a half.
Yet another paranormal overlap with the Osmonds. Jenny, thank you. We'll look for that Jenny Calista Yasmine, folks, who has netted the mysterious and depressed-looking Woolen Boy. When we return, your letters and emails. Stay tuned. I can still recall the fascinating stories my mother related to young Proctor and I about her first family before the life we all knew. Now, this was years before meeting my father in April 1941, when they were both working as volunteers handing out cigarettes to the victims of the Mohana coal plant explosion in Baltimore. Well, before she became Mrs. Leonard Partisan Prather, she raised 11 children out of wedlock, despite giving birth to none of them. Now, in the years before my 11 step-siblings peeled off to fight in the Spanish Civil War and eventually serve in Franco's Entertainment and Leisure Cabinet, they were holed up with my mother Agnes in the gray, lean days of the Great Depression. Two things ring in my memory from the many stories she shared with us. One was the recipe for her rustic carrot tar soup, and the other was her guile at obtaining and hiding valuables. Like many folks in the old days, my mother hid her money in the mattress, and since she had 11 children to care for in the first go-round, that meant she had 2 whole mattresses to work with, her checking and savings accounts of sorts. Now, for most of my adult life, banking has been a far cry from the convenience and peace of mind my mother had. That is until I found out about Slumber Savings and Loan. From the crochet border on the sign to the hummingbird feeder next to the mahogany front door at each branch, you'll know immediately this is a different type of financial institution. Safe and securely underwritten by the Jordanian Ministry of Tourism, you'll feel that slumber difference as soon as you step onto the plush carpet of their cozy front desk area. What you won't find are zombie-like bank tellers, sterile marble-floored echo chambers, or garish FDIC signs all over the place. Instead, you'll be greeted by one of Slumber SNL's gray-haired matrons, ready to direct you to your private banking room. From your first visit and forward, these chatty denizens will never lack for comments on your appearance and explanations of their skincare regimen. And you'll be allowed to refer to your comforting guide by Meemaw, Grammy, Nana, or the endearing term of your choice, each with their own unique eyeglass chains and tissue box accessories combo. Grim, emotionally distant elderly men are also available upon request in a variety of high-waisted jeans. And when you open the cedar door to your private banking room, you'll immediately notice the temperature increase and a penetrating aroma with notes of musk deer, cinnamon, and menthol. Enjoy the floral wallpaper, light switch dollies, abandoned embroidery hoops, and decorative plates adorned with phrases alternating between bold sexual innuendo and the owner's love for the savior. Quilt collections, china cabinets, cast iron bed, and a connected commode outfitted with a cushioned vinyl toilet seat are all standard. Taken all together, this offers you perhaps the most valuable service: choice. Split up your assets to confuse any potential thieves. Tuck them in the always popular mattress. Maybe a little cash wrapped in foil does the Jacques Cousteau in the toilet tank. I have to say, though, the security the folks at Slumber SNL offer will season your fillet. All doors are left unlocked. That's right, unlocked. When any unauthorized person enters your abode of avarice, the temperature begins to increase from the already cozy 97 degrees all the way up to a balmy 130 degrees Fahrenheit, with every one of the 6 humidifiers in the room on full blast. By the way, the minute the would-be rogue enters, the 1992 Lee Greenwood album Love Is On The Way begins playing in a continuous loop at 1/4 speed. Of the 600 desperate thieves who attempted entry last year, only one survived, and he now interacts with the outside world, banging out Morse code on salad spoons. You'll find branches in most every town with a population under 6,000, so it's time for you to visit the Slumber Savings and Loan near you and get back to the basics of money management. No monthly fees and a range of competitive interest rates await you. Like my mother always said, if anyone comes near the mattress while I'm out, stab them in the kidney with a steak knife. Slumber Savings and Loan. Start making your own unforgettable memories today.
Why don't you try to understand him before you try to kill him?
Sasquatch! Sasquatch! Over there in the woods. How does he keep his hair so well conditioned? I was just lifting up my coffee cup here, and it reminds me, we have a truly fascinating individual on the show next week, Armory Babette. I just watched this guy a couple of weeks back on the Mexican talk show, Mis Palabras Son Fuego. And if you've ever been curious about cup rings on furniture, as I have, boy, am I glad to have this guy around. He's performed thousands of cup ring readings on kitchen counters, coffee tables, you name it. Years ago, he read a nest of these suckers on a console table at his great aunt's place in Tel Aviv and accurately predicted Japan would win the bid for the Winter Olympics this year. And he'll be on to promote his new book, Wait a Minute Before You Clean That, which I've read and I think it's fantastic. One of the chapters in there on bathtub hair fibers has me fixated on those now. I was in the shower for 4 hours on Monday decoding these things, and poor Marisol called 911. You have not lived until you burst out of the curtains in the full Greek in front of a crew of paramedics. All right. Well, our first email is from Brahma Zolani at Burkina Faso ImportExplosion.com. Dear friend, it starts, I ask you, as you begin reading this letter, to involve as few people as possible. Your life will be in danger from rocks and possibly knives as soon as this delicate matter exposes itself to you. If you are versed in international affairs, you may recognize my family name Zolani from our well-known brand of diesel-powered riding vacuums. I think I've heard of them. These are not only a favorite of consumers throughout Belgium, but provide a distinguished service in the Sixth War of Frustration fought against the Sokoto Caliphate, a poorly dressed regime whose holdings included Cameroon, Nigeria, and my homeland Burkina Faso. My concern in writing is my brother Borealis Zolani, who is in danger of losing his birthright. I myself am already a wealthy man many times over. Just one example of this alone is my ownership of the entire Cagney and Lacey box set, dubbed in Korean on VHS with commentary. The laws of Burkina Faso are quite draconian and do not allow me to purchase so much as a sandwich for Borealis without risking my own execution. As for Borealis, he is deep in the wilderness of British Columbia filming a situation comedy, The Elderly Wolves, and we have had no success in reaching him via phone, mail, or fax. Emails are also unable to reach anyone in BC, as there is severe flooding in the area and the waters have risen too high for electronic communications to get through. He continues, by the time our father Rick passed away, after consuming undercooked yam, Borealis had already left to film The Elderly Wolves, which also stars former Olympic gymnast Mary Lou Retton. Boy, they're going to be sorry on that one. Beyond the obvious suffering of the heart, the ugly gears of moneyed affairs were triggered, and now we are left with only 2 weeks to claim my dear brother's inheritance of $352.6 billion. I'm not a dishonest man, but I'm asking you, as a stranger, the receiving party for this letter, to impersonate Borealis and claim the money so that he is not left with empty hands on his return. If you can agree to this and provide your bank account and routing information post-haste, I or a servant of my choosing send you back the message we need you to send to the Burkina Faso Department of Deceased Affairs, along with a phonetic guide to impersonating my brother's unique speaking accent. We will allow you to keep 10% of the $352.6 billion. We know this is not much money for your trouble, but hope you will consider helping us out. Sincerely, Brahma Zolani, son of Rick. Well, thank you for your letter, Brahma. I don't know a whole lot about estate planning. And I hate to see anyone put in a tough position because it can often affect your critical thinking. And I don't think your plan is necessarily flawed, but the problem is that I'm actually already impersonating 2 other people who live in British Columbia. And to be honest, it was just some harmless fun while an old high school friend of mine tried to get some assets relocated to New Zealand. But the bigger point is that the authorities up there do not take kindly to it. And normally I would be pleased as a plumber to see my face on a billboard, but this is not one of those times. Now, unlike most letters, Yuri actually had me read this one prior to our airing. As it turns out, we've had a little bit of a mustard on the mashed potatoes situation here the last few months. Marisol is absolutely hooked on those shopping channels. Well, she was double fisting the Jim Beam like a club hammer back in March. and she lost a couple of grand on the Lewis Briggs fight. Now, to put it short, she spent a night screaming at the television, and in the morning we were owners of a food supply warehouse in the Dominican Republic. Well, we could have just emailed you for this, but we really wanted this to be a surprise since it looks like you can really use some good news. Yuri has a little bit of the skip tracer in him, and he managed to find your location based on something called an IP address. I think the term's a little vulgar, but you know engineers. The point of all this is to say that sometimes folks are just looking for a little hope and opportunity, and that's what we're sending your way. I don't judge your attempt to try to extricate Borealis, but I think the thing he would appreciate more than an inheritance is building that wealth from the ground up. So I'm pleased to say we're going to be sending you 16 pallets of freeze-dried peaches, a tent, and a chair. Now, this is basically a business in a box. And although I didn't see our acquisition coming, moments like this do make it worth it. And the market for preserved fruit is flying like a high hamster right now. I think he's going to make a ton of money. So we hope you'll drop us a line and let us know how all that works out. Appreciate the email. All right. Well, just 2 of these entries tonight for time management, but we have a blast from the past. It's a little alarming how quickly I got used to email, but the fact is that we still get a good amount of snail mail. And I've got another genuine article right here. But the letter in my hand is a bit of a special case for a couple of reasons. First, it's postmarked May 1975, 23 years ago or so, I guess. Second, it's from the previous owner of the Arrow Flip Studios, where we started out, Davy Medora, God rest his soul. As it happens, Davy passed away in June of that year when he popped a wheelie on his Yamaha and wound up in a naval microwave relay overlooking Pensacola Harbor. All right. Well, it begins, Dear Stephen, I've given some thought to the agreement we made that allowed you to pay half normal rate for use of the studio. The thing is, I met a girl at the Topless Bottom on Saturday. Her name is Isadora Flame, and I want to try to get her out of the exotic dancing game, and that means I need more money coming in. The Indemnity Brothers are willing to pay full rate for the same time slots I'm booking you in now. Dougie does a little coke, but he's generally manageable. I'm headed down to Florida for a week, but when I get back, we'll work out the details. Sorry to do this, but Isadora is Hungarian, and I don't think anyone is listening to the show anyway. Yours, Davy. Well, revisiting the memory of Davy makes me feel like we should give something back, getting things started all those years ago. Unfortunately, Davy is no longer here to give it to, of course, and if Isadora Flame is the one I'm thinking of, she's serving in the Italian Parliament. I do believe Davy's sister, Nellie, may still be alive. So, Yuri, I'm thinking we can send Nellie 3, maybe 4 pallets of the freeze-dried peaches. Very least we can do, I think. All right. Well, when we return, folks, it will be time to reconvene our conversation with Pastor Thomas Paul Knackery from the Church of the Ascending Tension. Do stick around. We spend a good amount of time on this show trying to find ways to reconnect with lost loved ones. No one is ever really ready to say goodbye to a friend or relative, but the process that surrounds how we steer folks to the afterlife often seems to pour piranhas into the punch. From the ceremony to the interment, funerals can seem like one long death march. Well, Procession Concessions is here to euthanize yesterday's mortuary moments and usher in an experience ready for the 21st century. I was invited by these folks recently to attend the funeral of Gert Agner, a young Danish man who died tragically while attaching decorative fringe to a water treatment plant smokestacks outside Dusseldorf. Not only did I have no connection to the deceased, when I looked at Gert's photo in the entryway, I felt instinctually I wouldn't have gone along with him in life. Now, before I could make a quiet exit, I was greeted by a young woman dressed in a smart neon green pantsuit, who immediately offered me a delicious pork sausage on a stick and a commemorative keychain with a miniature bear attached. Looking into the foyer, I couldn't help but notice a healthy sprinkling of Procession Concession personnel easy to spot in the same eye-catching neon green slacks and shirts. Now, I had only to take a few steps inside before I realized the drab organ-heavy music normally permeating this kind of scene had been replaced by a driving hip-hop deep house dance track. As I was filling out my lunch order choices on the back of the full-color trifold in memoriam pamphlet, I was also delighted to find coupons for carpet cleaning, storage, and matchmaking services. For an extra $10, I purchased a recliner seat to enjoy the ceremony, and I've got to admit, missing a great deal of it after finishing my braised duck. Well, that's with the exception of the opening magician, Fez Jacob, whose pyrotechnics kept even the snooziest of us awake. And I have to admit believing the casket fire was a real accident before Fez slammed the lid shut and took a well-choreographed bow. And I can guarantee you, you will never have as much fun as frisbee golfing your way out to the burial plot. I had the second lowest score after Gert's mother, who was a woman of singular focus. While, as the winner, she did receive the coffin pinata, all participants received a bling bag. Add to all this, that there's a good chance that, like me, between the hot towels and the coffee service, you'll hardly remember what was said at the interment. Well, not to worry, every member of your funeral party will receive a professionally produced VHS of the event with a hard rock score by the band Spandex Fuselage, whom you might remember from their top 20 hit, The Fire That Burns Us All. Although I was told Gert was terrified of the water, I thought the surfing footage really tied his presentation together nicely. So don't settle for a lackluster event. Turn to the neon shirts at Procession Concessions and choose from an array of options, from the mini mourner to the peace out to the top of the line ultimate goodbye package. Give them a call today at 1-800-279-7863 or 1-800-CRYPT-ME, or visit them on the web at itsmypartyandilldieifIwantto.com for more information. Let Procession Concessions freshen your next succession. We've had a nice stack of recommendations for a website name change come in off the Higher Plane hotline. Nothing through the forum yet. Read through a couple of these. Crystal in Thunder Diamond, Ontario suggests fountainofblood.com. Pretty evocative, but it might hem us in to certain topics, I think. Nadeem Indira in Perth Amboy, New Jersey recommends just the question mark symbol.com. Tempting. I like the openness of it. Nice thing is that if we ever hung up the spurs on this program, we could pretty much do anything with that. Maybe we could finally make the custom patio furniture design dream finally come true. Let's find one more here. Johan Kenton from Dust Trap, North Dakota likes spectralenema.com. That's kind of catchy. I'd say I'm in love with what we've seen so far. So light up that switchboard. If we can get this settled tonight, I can list my Dollywood chaps on eBay to underwrite the whole thing, assuming that sucker is still available. Okay. 10 years ago, we first spoke with our next guest, and I was immediately impressed by his general liturgical knowledge, and an immediate camaraderie kind of took hold, as we're both holders of honorary titles. Pastor Thomas Paul Knackery was born Freddie Angel Phillips to a family of amateur wrestlers in Shallow Pool, Montana. I think most folks would call him a journeyman. He hosted the mixed-sex Go Montana beauty pageant in 1977 and 78. He was the first man ever to be incarcerated at Montana Women's Prison when he attempted to spring Margaret Merritt Lindsay, who was doing a stint for bribery. While there, he would earn the nickname the pastor as primary conduit into the facility for illicit drugs. Margaret would be released on good behavior and now manages a nonprofit delivering barbecue grills and accessories to the wealthy. On his own release in 1987, Pastor Knackery also turned his back on narcotics and penned the autobiography Star Preacher, where he also shared his plan for vast underground communities that would serve as the forerunners to interstellar colonization. Joining us now on the subterranean line from somewhere under Libertyville, Kansas, Pastor Thomas Paul Knackery. Pastor, how are you, my friend?
I've been better.
Well, we've been eagerly awaiting this little chat since we parted ways last October. When we last spoke, you were taking on a pretty daring mission following the tunnel from under the south wing of the Divine Detention Tabernacle, driving straight on under the city dump, which we understand had active use dating back to the woodland peoples.
That was the plan.
Of course, you had, gosh, a huge list of different opportunities, including getting a look under the Evelina cotton soaking mill, which we're about 70% sure had a community of incubi right underneath it. How many tunnels have you explored since our last discussion?
One.
So, I know everyone listening is as excited as I am. Which tunnel did you choose?
The same one.
Well, we knew it might take some time, even following the old city sewer outlet. You were lucky enough to find out that the sewer hub was right under the old tabernacle. I mean, what a break that was.
Lucky.
Well, I know it must smell like an ostrich with the runs down there, but I have to say, the organization is flat out impressive. Got to hand it to the city fathers. That's the way you design drainage, my friends. If I remember correctly, you set out on one of the 12 spokes of the hub. That was City Alley 5, right?
Right.
And you kept following City Alley 5.
Up to a point.
I see. You had to abandon it then.
I didn't really have a choice.
Well, follow me on this. Based on the diagram and the hub portico that you shared, City Alley 6 was the closest, but that would only go straight back to the center. It's the shortest run in the complex. So City Alley 5, you may remember, made a huge loop under pretty much every major structure in Libertyville.
It didn't really work out that way.
Well, I guess I just really don't understand why you would leave City Alley 5. City Alley 5 is the lifeline of that whole system outside the hub itself.
Well, it didn't work out. Can we talk about something else?
I don't mean to grumble, but with City Alley 5, you could have run the table. There's a fair chance you'd be done by now.
This is City Alley 5. City Alley 6 collapsed 6 months after our last conversation. The shock forced a partial collapse of the basement toilets behind the methadone clinic around my position. I'm standing in 2 feet of liquefied crap. I hallucinate on a regular basis.
Well, at least that leaves you with a water supply. Pastor, we're going to put you on hold while we take a short break here.
I'm cold.
All right, we'll be back after this with more insights and discoveries from under our very feet with Pastor Knackery. Do stick around. It's inevitable as we get older that we start to dread that old mirror. The years take their toll. Down go the jowls, out goes the hair, and your waistline decides it's time for a coming out party. Worse yet, if you're not as financially independent as your friends, work colleagues, or acquaintances, there's a continuing dishonor of seeing them age gracefully or even backward, with a little help from their neighborhood plastic surgeon or internet medicine man. Combine that with the cost of auto repair, for instance, and you've got a 1-2 combination that could have you making pinto bean soufflés for the next decade. Well, it's time to make our wallet more plump as we shed the bump and take the dent out of our trunk with the affordable, easy to learn, and easier to use Motoplasty home plastic surgery and automotive service kit from the minds at Rafferty Sterling Motor Oil and Auto Accessories. I know in part what convinced me to go ahead with a right pinky extension earlier this month is the long and impressive reputation of Rafferty Sterling. A 7-minute VHS tape is all you need to get started because Motoplasty does all the heavy lifting. And get ready to save time because their patent disqualified dual track system lets you literally do 2 things at once. Here's how easy it is. Grab that laminated Motoplasty Quick Start Guide and select one of the 40 different surgery and service combinations of your choice. Let's try the Brake and Body Fat combo number T12. Open up Molly Motoplasty, the colorful and massive turtle-shaped storage container that the fine folks at Rafferty Sterling dropped off in your garage. Use the color-coded guide inside for option T12 to grab the surgical and automotive materials needed for this convenient procedure. Next, you're going to fasten that lipo pack around your midsection. remove the wheel of your choice from your automobile and watch in amazement as the fat is sucked away by the very centrifugal forces resurfacing your brake drum and rotor. And why stop there? Put a little volume in your cheeks while your AC gets its own recharge. Or maybe your posterior will enjoy a classy new interior passenger seat makeover with their new high-speed stitched leather upholstery upgrade. And you'll have to pull that seatbelt a little further out to make room for the breast augmentation you knocked out at the same time. I think you're going to be very pleased with this system. And I say that out of personal experience. And best of all, you'll be happy to know it has a fatality rate often below 40%. I gotta say, I'm looking forward to giving the oil change rhinoplasty a spin myself. Give these folks a call at 188-HOSE-PIT or 1-888-467-3748 to talk about financing options and learn that and more on the web at pattysgardengnomes.com. Get motoring with Motoplasty today. Back with Pastor Thomas Paul Knackery. So, Pastor, as you know, our listeners have been pretty darn inspired by your story and your passion, quite frankly, for exploration. How can the folks listening contribute to your effort as you go forward?
Get me out of the hole.
Right, that's definitely the long-term goal. I imagine you have a pretty long list, though. What about money, equipment, materials?
A car?
Car. Any particular make and model? Might you be looking for a small truck, perhaps, to haul small loads of rock and earth?
Looking to drive out of the hole.
Well, let's shift gears here a little bit. What about condiments? Something to give meals a little more punch. I mean, it can get pretty tedious down there, am I right?
This is an endless crab storm.
Crab storm, you say?
Crab! Like someone's taking a crab on me.
No, I don't think the audio is the best there. The endlesscrabstorm.com. You know, this is hitting me right here, but this really resonates. Gosh, I think we've had 6 or 7 shows over the years about crab storms. Most of them on the East Coast, except for that Cheyenne, Wyoming incident.
Wyoming?
That is really sticking. The endlesscrabstorm.com. That is going to be hard to beat. Yuri, can you log on and see if that's still available?
Margaret?
All right. I'm gonna promise everyone that we'll look at your interest. But boy, do I feel a positive inferno inside my loins for this one. And it's really emblematic and perfectly, just pretty darn infinite in its application. Pastor, I'm going to patch you back to Yuri, who's going to send a pallet or 2 of freeze-dried peaches down as a parting gift for joining us on the program. Good luck with your continued exploration, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you, Margaret, wherever you are as well. Well, the good pastor remains an enigma. Are we any closer to understanding what lies beneath the haunted habitat of Libertyville? You get people together, like minds or not, and it just builds a creative energy, you know. And can't tell you how excited I am about this website thing. And it's a bit like the taverns in the days before the revolution. You know, Tom Paine and those boys obviously had their own crab storm to contend with. Could have been cod in their case, but the spark is the same. Of course, we have to thank Jenny Calista Yasmine, Stephanie and Yuri, as always, and to the fine folks at the Coal Exchange. I have to say that I have never felt a weightier presence in my gut than an extra large calcified bran pretzel. Didn't even know that was a thing. So my thanks for that unique experience. Our Saturday program will feature songwriter Desiree Glenn, who is the first indie artist to perform with an extraterrestrial on stage. And she'll be sharing with us what it was like to perform with a Sassani bassist from the band Flurm. And they transmitted a really nice cover of Bridge Over Troubled Water to the Voyager probe. If you haven't heard it, it's fantastic. So expect that and a lot more. We hope you will join us. Until then, do not allow the ordinary distractions to thwart your search for wisdom and knowledge. All that and more may just be revealed beyond the near horizon. Good night.